If you already have like an idea, then you should probably just go for it, but try to hire people that have done it in the past as well. My name is Moritz. I'm the founder and CEO of Alaiko. I have a background in business and management. I'm originally from Cologne. Have been living in Munich now for the past 7 years. With Alaiko, we are building a fulfillment provider that is basically doing logistics for direct-to-consumer e-commerce companies. And so we enable that anything you might be shopping online arrives at your doorstep in full and in time. We started the company roughly 2 years ago and have now scaled to roughly 100 employees. As I said, are based in Munich, are shipping worldwide, and it's been fun so far. It's the third company that I have co-founded together with my co-founder. So it's been the same person and me all the time. Gabriel has been in charge of product and tech all the time, and I've been basically covering all of the other fields. I did study business and management at a university called WHU, which is in Fallenda. Went there for my bachelor's and also did part of my master's there. And they had an exchange program which kind of enabled me to go and study at ESSEC for about a year. That was in 2015. And what I really liked about ESSEC was that really campus feeling you got. So it was really easy for me to get in touch. Most of my friends were French. There, so I would rather spend time with the French crew and not the exchange students. We were, as exchange students, pretty free to choose courses, but given my interest in entrepreneurship back then already, so most of the courses I took, I think it was like new venture creation, entrepreneurship, some of them even in French. So we're kind of like touching entrepreneurial space. So that really evolved over the course of my studies. So when I started off with my bachelor's, I really thought I'm going to go to consulting, and even applied for consultancies end of my bachelor's. And then at my master's at WHU as well as at ESSEC, I really started taking entrepreneurial courses, got interested in the topic. But back then, so 2015, it wasn't that popular. So most of my friends that I went to university with also are currently doing banking or consulting. It was kind of like the first thing to do. And the courses definitely helped nurturing my interest in it. What I especially liked was the hands-on mentality. So we were put in touch with many other French entrepreneurs that visited the courses. We did case studies, and that made it really tangible for us to kind of like feel how entrepreneurship would feel like. And I also did an entrepreneurial internship prior to coming to ESSEC, so I kind of like knew what I was getting myself into. And then the decision was clear for me. After ESSEC, I went back to Germany and kind of like finished my master thesis. And prior to coming to ESSEC, I already met my co-founders for the new venture that we were going to found. So that was then early 2016. And it's a digital therapeutics company called Kaya Health. With that one, we kind of like digitize pain therapies, digitize physiotherapy. So you would get physical exercises on your mobile phone you can do anywhere at home. So it's basically like a Freeletics, but not for a six-pack, but for like medical exercises. For that one, we moved to Berlin, and then after that to Munich. And I've been living here for the past 7 years. And the idea for the venture kind of like started with one of my co-founders suffering from back pain for a really, really long time. And he went to the physiotherapist once a week on a Thursday afternoon. And as soon as you start working, that's not really an appointment that you can easily meet. And then we thought about, hey, there are so many fitness apps out there and there are so many people doing exercises at home. Why not do the same exercises you would do with a physiotherapist? And that's how it all started. And that company still is a big success. So we scaled it into 16 European countries, and then in 2017 also moved over to the US, opened offices there, went down the typical fundraising roadmap, so raised way above 100 million euros for that company. And then my co-founder of Alaiko, as well as me, left operationally in end of 2018, early 2019. In parallel to Kaya, we founded our own e-commerce shop. And with that e-commerce shop company, we are selling ginger shots, so small 60 milliliter bottles, they're extremely spicy. And we basically set that up as a weekend project because we liked drinking them, and in the supermarket they're super expensive, so we thought, why not build our own company around it? And then we had to experience how non-digitized logistics is, how painful logistic processes are, how difficult it is to easily set up your fulfillment operations. And we started looking into the business model and started looking into other companies in the US, in Asia, doing something similar, and then kind of figured, we believe, given our experience from Kaya, that we can build that in a better way, and we can build a way more advanced tech product than they did. And that's why we started Alaiko then 2 years ago. It was mainly deeper market research and getting out to customers. So really getting out of the building and talking and testing our hypothesis as much as possible. And also we were before founding the company mainly looking into the US market and business models there, and as well the same thing in Asia. It was really important for us to kind of validate, does this also suit to Europe? And how does the warehouse landscape look like? How do e-commerce shops behave? How do online shoppers behave? What are the key differences between the two markets in terms of warehouse density or distances you have to overcome, or cross-border, which is something that is obviously in Europe a thing, and in the US not that much. And then we started setting out for building our first MVP, which was basically just mock-ups. So it wasn't even a functioning product. And then with that mock-ups, we went out to the customers again and iterated. I think throughout the last 2 years that happened quite a lot. So initially we started off by thinking that we would serve the long tail, so really the small e-commerce merchants that have just started, that have just set up their Shopify shop, but then quickly figured out that outsourcing for these small e-commerce merchants doesn't make sense. So it's more a bigger target group that we're targeting right now. It's in our company language, it's already the mid-market. So these are direct-to-consumer brands that are well established and already employ 50, 60, 70 employees, so rather big companies. So that was one big iteration we did, and another one was mainly focusing even more on tech. So in the beginning we were much focused on the fulfillment part and getting operations right, which is super important as it's the hygiene factor. This has to work, but over the course of the years our focus has really shifted to how can we take this a step further? How can we make fulfillment and parcel delivery even more customized? How can we ensure that you get a different parcel than your friend, even though you order the same product? Because you might be a first-time customer and your friend is ordering for the fourth time. So it's really the tech that has mainly been driving innovation in the past. We knew that the space was quite competitive. We knew that we were going to build a product and validate the product with first customers for quite some time, so roughly a year. It took until we had the first fully functioning MVP ready. And when we launched, we weren't doing that much marketing, because as I said, logistic is an aspect of an e-commerce shop that is so important. If you screw that up, you're in big trouble, like really big trouble. And so you have to kind of like somehow get it right the first time. And that's why we kept building and building and building. And also in terms of fundraising, we just raised convertible loans and didn't get any institutional investors on board, no VCs, nothing. And went on with that for 2 years. And up until we had like really large substantial revenues, and then went out with a bang. And that was then like full press coverages in multiple countries, 2 agencies working on that. And it was super interesting because you could see kind of like the key market players already talking about Alaiko for quite some time. Yeah, so everybody knew in Munich something's going on, and some e-commerce shops are really like excited about what's happening there. It was way different for the different companies. Yeah, so back at Kaya, we kind of like went down the typical fundraising VC venture capital roadmap. Got like super first family and friends money on board, angels on board, a pre-seed VC from the Nordics. Then we did our seed financing and Series A financing with a UK-based venture capitalist, did the Series B with a US fund, and the Series C last year also with a US fund. Yeah, so that was like really VC fundraising by book. And for Alaiko, we did it differently. So we did not want any institutional money, so neither governmental nor venture capitalists to be involved for a really long time, because we already knew how the next 2 years are going to look like. We already knew what to build, we already knew where to head and how to kind of like get there in an iterative way. So for us, it was really about who do we need to get on board in terms of angel money and angel expertise. So we set out and started looking for logistic angels. We started looking for angels with a finance background, with a tech background. So we got like really super great CTOs on board who are advising us, as well as other entrepreneurs and founders, which is super helpful, because like for every incident, every situation, every problem we had in this company, I do have someone to call. All of these angels are pooled and bundled basically, which is good for future financing rounds, because a venture capitalist does not want to see super many, like a broad group of stakeholders on a cap table. So we've taken care of that as well, and then roughly 6 months ago raised our Series A with 2 US venture capitalists. So that was $30 million in total US dollars, and that was also the time we went out of stealth mode. When you found a company and found another company and found another company, it's quite a burden, because you want to do it better, faster, like more successful, over and over and over again. And there are a lot of things and mistakes you learn from that you do not do anymore. So you can act upon that. So you, for example, like a really early hire we did was someone taking care of people and culture. My second hire was a head of finance. So because I knew this is something you want to get right from the beginning, and the honest answer is probably that for Alaiko, not that much. So all of the mini pivots we did were good in a way, because they led us to the product that we're building today. They led us to the expertise we have today. So far, I'm super happy with our development. So let me start with skills. I would definitely go for selling. So one of the most important personality traits for a founder, or at least it has to be somewhere in the founding team, is the ability to sell. Not just for commercial purposes, but also for fundraising, and also for hiring, and also for motivating employees. And that's something that is kind of like hard to train. It is trainable, I guess, but when thinking about how to build up a founding team and how to build up a complementary setup, that's definitely a skill set I would always think of. And when it comes to tools, so my co-founder and me, we've always been fans of not complicating things too much in the beginning. And so I think you can as of today, there are so many tools out there, so you could really get lost in there and build super complex structures. And one of the tools that has been with us ever since founding is Notion. So we've been using that ever since because it's super customizable and you can basically build anything from sales funnels to hiring funnels to small CRM systems. And again, build, measure, learn. And once you know what your setup is, then you can take a mature system in. So as of now, after 2 years now, the whole company has moved to Salesforce because we knew how the processes should look like. And that's how we're set up. So Gabriel and me, we went to the same university during our bachelor's. So both WHU back then, business and management. And after that, he really pursued for masters and internships, a product management career. And given that product field was always in touch with tech as well. And that kind of made our career paths quite complementary to each other, because I've been always on the commercial side, mainly working in sales jobs during internships and marketing jobs, and he's been on the kind of structured process building side of things, and that really matched from a professional standpoint. Then on the other hand, we had some group projects in university back then, so we knew each other. We're not super close friends. But we knew that we kind of get along well, and also from a personality standpoint knew that it was quite complementary to each other, because I would definitely describe me as an outgoing person who really likes to talk to people and go to fairs and speak at conferences, and also with respect to internal communication, establish new leadership trainings and programs and that kind of stuff. And that really matched with basically what Gabriel's bringing to the table as well, which is a super sharp strategic view on processes and basically how to make the boat go faster in the end. And that's a good match ever since. And then over the companies, it's just mainly about building up trust, knowing what the other person is capable of, and your thinking kind of becomes aligned. So we had multiple situations where employees were talking to either him or me, and then the other way around, and they were like, wait, did you talk in between, because you're answering exactly the same thing? And so it really looks like that our way of thinking is really aligned, and that's good. So the first person that joined, that was actually almost a year before founding the company. So we had 12 developers, so we hired them knowing because we can develop. But the first business person that joined was roughly, I think it was 10 months prior to founding the company. He's also from WHU, so comes with a general business background, and basically started in a role you would probably call founder's associate back then, and that was helpful right from the beginning, because you don't have to do all of the research tasks by yourself, and you can easily start setting up new departments, new components, new processes, and just outsource that to a person who's also super interested in entrepreneurship, and it's basically just expanding capacities a bit. And then after that, it's been our head of finance, because I knew we wanted to get that right the first time, and a colleague who's in charge of people and culture management. So that's also one of the big learnings from the past companies, that we started hiring HR related roles way too late, and that's something that a mistake we did not want to do back then anymore. And then we got more. So my hiring technique was kind of finding people after that, after the first 3 to 4 hires, finding people who have done what they need to do already in 1 or 2 companies. So we were looking for people that have already led a team of 5 or 10 employees, and then poached them. So we got a marketing lead, we got, as I said, a finance lead, we got a sales lead, we got an operational lead, we got a logistic lead, we got an HR lead. And it was really important for us to have these people in place and find people that also come with an entrepreneurial mindset and that say, okay, I had a team back then, I knew how a team should look like, I knew how structures look like, but I'm willing to start this department on my own and get back to work and get really hands-on again and work myself up to having a team again of, let's say, 10 or 15. And that approach worked really well because you would have people in these positions leading these departments that already know what they want and they know what kind of systems to use and they know how to set up processes, and that makes you a lot faster. That was our first sales basically resulted out of the investigation phase. Yeah, so when we started interviewing customers and really learning about their problem, and then kind of like obviously also letting them know, hey, we're trying to build this and this is how it should look like and we're currently developing it. This phase took quite some time, and once we had the product ready, we even saw customers coming back to us and saying like, hey, how are you doing? How's it going? We still have the problem. And then we were like, yeah, now we have a small MVP solution. Maybe you want to try it out for free first on the tech side. Yeah, so I think for the first 6 months, roughly, no one was paying for the tech that we have built. It was really like a super iterative co-development with the first test customers. And then once the product had a certain level, it almost was selling itself on its own. I mean, like the thing with platform models, because we have logistic companies on the one hand and then e-commerce shops on the other, that you kind of like always have to balance it out. Yeah, so and in logistics, you are not able to sell fulfillment if you don't have capacity. So we kind of had to start with the warehouses first. So we set out to find our first warehouse partner, reserved some space there, and then basically filled that up and kind of like calculated, okay, how long did it take us to kind of like fill up that space? Okay, for the next phase, for the next warehouse, let's take a bigger warehouse, and so on and so on and so on. And that technique worked quite well. So in July, we are taking over a complete Amazon warehouse location close to Frankfurt. So they're moving out and we're moving in. And I mean, like once again, it was really like an iterative way of scaling. And I think one thing that helped a lot and kind of like refers back to Notion as well was that we tried to map out the processes in a really, really simple way before automating them with a more advanced tool or with workflows or something like that. And that really put us into the position to find out what we really need. And then once we were 100% sure and everyone aligned on this is where we're heading, got in a bigger tool, automated it, and that really helped scaling the company in the end as well. One saying that is really has been accompanying us throughout the last 2 years was an anecdote around a rowing team. Yeah, so and they had a coach who was trying to get them ready for a big tournament, and he kept saying the sentence, or he kept asking the question, does it make the boat go faster? The team really started, and I really like sport mentalities because it, to me, it like really refers to how a company should also be working as a sports team. And that question, they used that for all kind of occasions. Yeah, do we want to go out tonight and party? Does it make the boat go faster? Probably not. Yeah, so should we train at 5 a.m. in the morning? Does it make the boat go faster? Yes, it does. Okay, let's do it. I mean, like obviously, it's not like we never party here. That's also a good thing for company spirit. But I think it's a good, taking that anecdote is a good accompanying question you can ask yourself if you are striving for continuous improvement, and that's something you should definitely do. One of our company values I would highlight is heartiness. So to my understanding, people spend that much time in their workplace that it's super important to kind of like feel welcomed and value each other and meet each other on an eye level, no matter like kind of what kind of position the person's in. And I mean, like many startups say they have flat hierarchies, but in the end it's basically how you live them. There are always going to be situations where someone has to make a decision, but it's a lot about like how you communicate it and whose opinion do you take into account and how much weight do you put on that opinion. And and it's really like keeping an eye out for each other and caring for each other is something that I personally try to embody a lot, and that we also like really try to put into the company as well. And then another really big, it's in both in the leadership principles. There it's called scale yourself and empower others, and in our company values it's called own it. So referring to ownership. I think that's like the one of the biggest aspects if you want to scale successfully, whether or not you're kind of like able to scale yourself and teach others how to do things, and then on the other hand, have someone on the receiving end who's willing to own up to decisions, to deadlines, to deliverables. So that's something we also try to preach a lot. Yeah. I would always advise start working in a startup first, and try to kind of like get through to a role that puts you into as much exposure with as many different departments as possible. And I think for the past 3 to 4 or 5 years, the trend of these founders associate roles has been really popping up everywhere. Or sometimes it's called like a CEO office or something like that. And that's something I'd be heading for, and try to get that in a company where the founders are not doing it for the first time, because you do not want to be part of that try and error, then you can do it for yourself. But if you find someone who did it a couple of times and kind of like has made some experience already, that's where you can really like get that steep learning curve, and that's what you want to go for after your studies, I guess. And if you already have like an idea, then you should probably just go for it, but try to hire people that have done it in the past as well. On a personal level, you have to be balanced. So there's probably like these 3 areas of having like your families and a good partnership, and then your career, and then yourself. And I think especially the last part is something that entrepreneurs in general tend to neglect a bit, spending that many hours in the office. And now a few years into entrepreneurship, it's really important to kind of like balance the 3 parts out. And managing that, this is something that I would ultimately describe as success.